So today we're going to talk about different types of variation. So the first type is direct variation or directly proportional. How you say it is y varies directly with x, and then the formula is y equals kx. And you will need to know these by memory. They will not give them to you. And so what that's saying is it's situations where as x gets bigger, y also gets bigger. They directly vary with each other. A real life example of this would be like the more hours that you work a job, the more money you're going to make. And the less hours you work at a job, the less money you'll make. They vary together and they both get bigger together. Joint variation is another type of direct variation. It's y varies directly with x and z. Here's the equation. As x and z gets bigger, y also gets bigger. So this is why it's a type of direct variation. The way that it's different is that there are two things varying. So in a real world example would be the more time that you spend at the gym, the more you sweat, and the more calories you burn. The last is inverse variation. Is the first time where division is introduced. Y varies inversely with x. As x gets bigger, this is the first time where y gets smaller. A real-world example of this is the higher speed you travel, the less time it's going to take to get somewhere. What k is in all of these situations is the constant of variation. So that's something that won't change. That would be like if you were traveling and your constant would be like 55 miles per hour. You were constantly traveling that speed. So example 1, it says y varies directly with x. And so whenever it says that, you want to first write your equation. So the variable that comes first, that's what it equals. So y varies directly, so y equals. And then you always have a k, you always have your constant, and then when it says directly, we know it's multiplying. So I'm multiplying by x. Then it tells me y is 18, so I fill in 18 for y, and I fill in 4 for x, and I'm going to solve for k, because it asks for what is the constant of variation. So I divide by 4. 18 divided by 4 is 4.5. Then it says, what is y when x is 3? So now that I know my constant, now I can figure out what y is when x is 3. So I want to figure out what y is, and I know my k is 4.5, and they tell me that my x is 3. So I'm just doing 4.5 times 3, so my answer is 13.5. The next one says w varies jointly. So I do w equals, and I always have a k. Since it's jointly, it's another multiply. And it says with c and with z. It says w is 48. I don't know my k. C is 6. Z is 2. What's the constant? So let's solve for k. I'm going to be dividing over 12 because 6 times 2 is 12. And so that's going to give me my constant as 4. Then it says, what is w? So I want to know what w is. I know my k is 4. It tells me c is 10, and z is 5. So 4 times 10 times 5 is 200. So the next one says y varies, so y equals k, and this time it says inversely, so I do divide by with x. So y is 18, x is 4. What's the constant? So to get the constant, I multiply by 4 on both sides. So my constant is 72. Then it says, what is y? K is 72, x is 9. So my y would equal 8. All right, the next example says y varies directly, so y equals k. Varies directly means times, and it's with x squared this time. So y is 18. I don't know my k, when x is 4. So I use this first bit of information, I use it to solve for my k. Remember, notice that I kept my squared in there. So when I divide over, I'm going to be dividing over 16. And when I would do that on my calculator, I get 1.12. Then it says, what is y when x is 7? So now I'm going to take that k, I'm going to figure out what y equals, I'm going to plug in my k, and now it says x is 7. And notice I have to square that 7 as well. When I type that in my calculator, I would just get 54.88. That is my final answer. The next one, w varies, so w equals k. Varies jointly, so it's times c and z. So w is 36, C is 3, and Z is 3. And I'm finding K first. So I use, again, that first bit of information. I find K. So I'm dividing over 9 because 3 times 3 is 9. So my K is 4. And then it says, what is W? My K is 4. It tells me C is 2, and Z is 5. So I multiply those all together, and I get 40. That's my final answer. Next one, Y varies, so Y equals K. It varies inversely, so divide by X. Tells me Y is 10, and X is 2. So I multiply by 2, my K is 20. Now I said, ask what is X this time when Y is 15. So it's giving me 15 for Y. I know my K is 20, and it wants to know now what X is this time. So what I suggest you do to solve for this one is put the 15 over 1 and cross multiply. So I would have 20 equaling 15x, and then divide by 15. So if I did that, I would get 1.3 in my calculator. That's my answer. Sometimes you'll be given word problems. So this is how you want to approach these. Hooke's law states that a force required to stretch a spring varies directly. So the first thing you want to identify in the word problem is where it says the varies. So it says varies directly. And so then you want to make variables for the thing that's mentioned before the varies part. So it says states that the force required to stretch a spring. So I'm going to make a variable for force F. And it says it varies directly, so K times, because it's directly, and then name a variable for the thing after, so with the distance a spring is stretched. So I'll use D for distance. Now I know that force goes in the front and D is after the K. So it says if an 8-pound force, that would be for F, stretches a spring 3 inches. Inches is a distance. Now I'm going to solve for K. So my K is just 8 over 3. Then it says what force, so it's asking for F, is required to stretch a spring 6 inches. So I know my K, and my spring is 6 inches. That's a distance. So then I plug that right into my calculator, and my force would be 16.